Welcome back to a beautiful day here in New York City. This was an unusually quiet weekend. This is the weekend where I usually expect the streets to explode with insane activity, but it was really quiet last night. Even my building owner, who I was talking to, we were shocked. What is going on? Is it just the wrath of Mother's Day, where people say, I'm going to be calm and quiet, and respect mom and all of God's gentle creatures? I really don't know. Anyway, a good friend of mine, my next door neighbor, Jean-Marc, suggested I bring back a thing I used to do when I first started this channel so many years ago in the mid-1950s. And that feature was called 5x5, the 5x5 record challenge, wherein I sit in front of my records and reach over here and grab a record, I know not what, and attempt to say something intelligent about it. Let's take this out of the plastic. This is a early RVG Prestige Trident pressing of Gene Edmonds' AllStars. For a funny reason, I think this may have been one of the records that was recorded after Gene came out of the state pen. Blue Jean, Prestige 7146. Some lucky soul paid $1.59 for this at some point in America's glorious past. Includes Gene Edmonds tenor sax, Idris Suleiman trumpet, Pepper Adams baritone sax, Mal Waldron piano, Art Taylor drums, Doug Watkins bass, and I hate to report, Ray Barretto on conga. This is an outstanding cast, except for Ray Barretto on congas. If you watched my channel before, and let's get the negative part out of the way, I hate congas on jazz records. Because when a guy's going, the drummer just has to go ding, ding, da ding, ding, da ding. Because the drummer's got the top end of the frequency, cymbal, hi-hat, snare drum, a little bit of bass drum, and the conga drummer kind of dominates the rest of the rhythm, so the drummer can't really play anything and not clash with the. But in saying that, you know, it's easy to say this and easy to back it up. There are no bad Gene Edmonds records, and there's a whole bunch of them. But he has such a huge, beautiful sound. He actually has, to me, a sound somewhere in between Ben Webster and Lockjaw Davis, and his approach is somewhere in there as well. This only has 4 tunes: Blue Jean, Scamperin', Blue Greens and Beans, Hip Tip, which tells me this is a blowing session. Cash and Carry, as Kenny Washington will call it. But I don't remember this record because I have so many of his records, and this one is out of order, actually. But just another great classic Gene Edmonds record. If you're not familiar with Gene Edmonds, any of his Prestige records are great and definitely worth having. And he is definitely under the radar these days among collectors. His records aren't being reissued. They haven't decided to make a star out of him again and give him the full court Kevin Gray remastering, yada, 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 which is good for us because we can find these albums relatively cheap, though it might be hard to find one in excellent shape. So that's number one of the 5x5 challenge. Now I kind of know what's behind me here. Obviously these are Impulse records back here. If I look funny, I have a broken ankle, so I have to kind of weave around, but I'll push back a little bit. But why don't we go down below? This may be the ECM series. I have ECM at the end. No, I have the amazing. This is such a great record, man. And this is an original Decca copy of the very recently reissued George Russell's New York, New York. I have the reissue, and I do believe the reissue sounds better. The reissue, it just is a lot, not only does it have better separation across the channels, it's much fuller overall, there's more depth. It's just a wider, more sort of seamless frequency range recording and much easier to listen to than my hardy original. There are so many great George Russell albums. I was out at John DeVore's a few weeks ago and we were listening to one that I hadn't heard, but this one is so cool because it has the opening track, the narration by Jon Hendricks, New York, New York. So bad they had to name it twice. And he runs through the whole, it's really up-tempo, swinging, hard groove. But George Russell is renowned for his unusual harmonies. He's a real groundbreaker in both jazz composing and arranging. He really led the way. It would have been interesting to see what would happen. And I don't think there are any Miles Davis, George Russell collaborations. I could be wrong. But it would have been interesting to hear that, because as a composer, to me, George Russell is somewhere kind of like a space-age Charles Mingus, you know, like Gil Evans without the romanticism. Very sharp, very New York, very progressive. He's on another record that I have with a bunch of guys like John Christensen, more of a German cast. That's a wild record. Then the record we were listening to out of John DeVore's is all like tape loops, which I'd never heard this record, and it was just wild. So he was always really, really ahead. But we have, we'll give you the factoids. There's no hype sticker. Sorry, we couldn't make a hype sticker. Manhattan by Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart. Big City Blues by George Russell. Manhattan Rico, George Russell. East Side Medley, Autumn in New York. How About You? So he throws in some standards. A Hell of a Town, George Russell. And this has a really amazing cast on it. I mean, generally, if you want to find a jazz record from the late 50s, early 60s that's something out of the ordinary, is not a Blue Note record, it's definitely coming out of left field, it is highly original, and will open your brain up a little bit. I'd buy this and everything by George Russell. For me, the great tune on here is the tune with Jon Hendricks. It's just so much fun. And I love tunes on records made in this period that sort of celebrate the joys of New York City. There aren't a lot of them. Listen to this lineup. Oh, it's a different lineup at every track, but some of the players are Art Farmer, Ernie Royal, Bob Brookmeyer, Frank Rehab, Charlie Persip, Milt Hinton, Barry Galbraith, Bill Evans on piano, Benny Golson, Max Roach, George DeVivier, Evans again on piano, Don Lamont on drums, George DeVivier on bass, Bill Evans on piano. So top flight, top of the line. I think this record is 1959, I'm not positive. Record that I'm really psyched to have, even though I do have the reissue, which I think does sound better. My records are laid out. Okay, this will be interesting. This is a great record. It's not a jazz record. These are the Tone Poets. Above that is all Blue Note. More Tone Poet, Music Matter stuff. And then I have a bunch of Japanese import jazz up here next to the Impulse stuff. Then like right around here is Miles Davis. Johnny Bristol had a great song, it was a hit in the 70s called Hang On In There Baby. It's just great churning, you know, that great Isaac Hayes, Barry White, Curtis Mayfield 70s soul groove. And it's just stellar, man. This is a great funk soul record. My brother-in-law died a couple years ago and left this incredible collection of R&B records, dub records, reggae records, and this was one of them. And these are primarily all his tunes, which is kind of unusual. Good looking dude. Very much a 70s cover. She's looking for her man back there in the bokeh twilight. A great record, Hang On In There Baby. Look it up, Johnny Bristol, Hang On In There Baby. Really great. Let's pull over here. Alan Holdsworth, Sand. Is it jazz? I really don't know. But I'm a huge Holdsworth fan. This is on Relativity. This is probably 1990. Oh, this is 1987. For my money, Alan Holdsworth is the last great innovation, revolution in jazz guitar. I just wrote up a story on Samara Joy for Stereophile. The guitarist Pasquale Di Grasso is on that record. The guitarist who Pat Metheny called the Bud Powell of guitar, an amazing jazz guitarist who plays with classical technique. But that nobody has sorted the emotional or technical heights or fluidity heights, and in some places compositional heights for me, as Alan Holdsworth on this record. I think Secrets is maybe his greatest record with Vinnie Colaiuta. I like his early records like Heavy Metal Fatigue or Metal Fatigue. I love his stuff with Tony Williams. And there's also an album I've never heard. It's a 2 acoustic guitar album with Gordon Beck. Never heard it, never seen it, but man, would I love to hear it. Because on the UK album, UK made 2 early albums with Bruford and, Alan Holdsworth. Or maybe I'm thinking of the UK album, and he plays a string of beautiful acoustic guitar before the song Nevermore. And he was just an amazing acoustic guitarist. I don't know if he's jazz. He studied violin early on, but I don't know if he's jazz. I guess he is. He's one of those kind of guys who surpasses everything. It's like Aretha or somebody like that who kind of supersedes genre. We pulled that too, and these are 2 great ones. Lucky Thompson on Dawn, and another Lucky Thompson. Lucky Thompson on Dawn. 1113, True Hi-Fi, Marshall Salal, Michael Hauser, Gerard Pochenet, Benoit Guérin, and Pierre Michelot, a French album, obviously. Lucky is back, and so is Love. Whenever you see a Lucky Thompson album, you got to pick it up. Lucky bridges the gap for me between the old world of Lester Young and Ben Webster, and he's very erudite and very ethereal in a way. He's a very smart guy. He bridges the gap between those players and all the bebop guys and the hard bop guys. So he doesn't play hard bop, but he's so incredibly lyrical on all his records, and they're hard to find. And I've come to Lucky Thompson kind of late, but he has a beautiful tone, beautiful phrasing. He chooses great material.